And so welcome you again to our weekly call. So we're already at the end of April, which is quite shocking. It certainly seems to be moving quickly through the year, but there you are. It's obviously an age thing. Right, okay, on the call today, hopefully you're all aware, just to set expectations, that we're not going to do the DELEG panel discussion today as per the mailing list, and in fact the discussion on this call last week. We've pushed that back a couple of weeks to the 13th of May. I just thought I'd re-emphasize that just in case anyone had not picked up the email as yet. Sorry, wrong way. So given the late change, I don't have a sort of a second presentation lined up, so be more of a discussion this week, and possibly a shorter call as well. But there's a few things I wanted just to walk through, so it doesn't do any harm to have a little bit of additional time for that, and there'll be, so I'm sure, ample time at the end for any other business if there's anything that anyone wants to raise as well. So I'll give you a chance to think about that whilst we're running through. So anyway, let's start by just looking at some of the recent developments. There's a few things I wanted to highlight. So the first of which is Microsoft have just pushed out a survey which, given it relates to the sort of use of sort of DNS in Windows clients, I assumed will be of interest to a fair number of people on this call. It is quite a short survey, so it will only take you a few minutes to do, and is probably well worth your time, as it may well influence some of the future activities by the Windows DNS development team. So that's the likes of Tommy Jensen and colleagues. Many of you will know Tommy from his attendance at the IRTF meetings, amongst other things. Second thing, just I sort of mentioned this briefly on the call last week, but had sort of further details supplied in almost so as the call sort of completed, so I thought I'd just revisit it, which is the next DNS-OARC meeting, which is planned for late September, probably in South America. There's going to be lots of caveats on this one still, but the provisional plan is late September, potentially the week of the 23rd of September, in South America, again, possibly at Santa Marta, which is on the, I think it's the northern coast of Colombia. So to save you the time looking it up, the only direct flights to Santa Marta are either from other Colombian airports, the most obvious one being Bogota. Other than that, the only international link I could see was from Panama City. I couldn't spot any other direct flights from any other countries. So I think most people likely to attend will almost certainly need to go to one of the larger Colombian airports, and then just change onto a domestic flight for the last leg. I believe it will be co-located, as it was last year, with the ICANN DNS Symposium, and possibly some other DNS related activities, potentially sort of a Latin American or South American sort of DNS themed meeting, possibly something else from ICANN as well. But so details definitely to be confirmed, including the definitive dates and location. But if you're interested in going, it's worth just penciling it in, at least for the week of the 23rd of September. But definitely don't go booking any flights or anything else yet, just in case there's a late change of plan. But that's looking reasonably positive, and I think we should hear something definitive certainly within the next few weeks. So I personally thought the meeting in Da Nang last year went really well. Combined as it was with the ICANN's DNS symposium, and also ICANN did a DNS abuse day as well. I thought the whole sort of 4-day package worked pretty well last year. And it was also a really good venue. So hopefully we'll see something quite similar this time round. But as I say, expect definitive news in the next few weeks. But maybe just bear in mind it could well be that week at the back end of September. Okay, and there's also a call for sort of presentations, which I'll go back to in a second. It was, speaking of ICANN, at their Middle East DNS forum last week, and there's a short article covering the start of the forum, so there's a link to that on the next item. And then bottom of the screen, Bert Hubert, who many of you will know from his time with Power DNS, although he's moved on from sort of DNS related matters onto other, well, a wide range of other sort of very varied things. But I saw he'd put out on the RIPE blog an article on internet privacy, and as you can see, titled "The Cost of Losing Control." So I covered a range of mainly privacy related topics. I always found Bert to be a really interesting, thought-provoking speaker, so it's good to see him sort of coming back to the industry a bit, at least a little bit. So whether that's going to be the first of many things, who knows? But yeah, interesting article. Also, where we're sort of in the run up to on the policy side, NetMundial plus 10. So the original NetMundial meeting met 10 years ago, near enough. And Carolina pulled together, so Carolina from the DNS Research Federation pulled together a summary of or analysis of some of the responses to a consultation that was undertaken in advance of the meeting using the DAP Live platform. So I thought it was interesting to see that the platform was being used. So and since there are quite a few responses, a pretty time efficient way of getting across some of the key points covered in them, if you have an interest on the policy side. Just moving down the screen, I was quite surprised, in a positive sense, to see there's a post-doctoral post in AI and cybersecurity being advertised. It was listed. I just picked it up on the. Actually, that's clearly the wrong link I've put in there. I do apologise. I will correct that after the call. Not by AdGuard. It was advertised sorry, on a blog linked to the DNS4 EU project, because the position is for the Czech Technical University, and it was linked to the DNS4 EU project. So yeah, it was good to see. That may be of interest, maybe not necessary to some of you on the call, but maybe to friends and colleagues. You may wish to flag that. But as I say, I'll correct the link. Sorry, it is very definitely not on the AdGuard blog. So yeah, I thought I'd sort of correct you things, but I obviously missed that one. Yeah, and then just skipping to the sort of last two on the screen. Those of you paying attention last week will may recognise these two, because I did mention them briefly last week. I just wanted to sort of just slip in the sunrise to sunset one. Because Domain Tools is running a session at the RSA conference next week. as I mentioned last week, it's the only one I could find on the agenda that had an overt link to the DNS. So I thought it merited a second reference if you're attending RSA in person. I'm not sure if you can attend remotely, actually. Certainly it will be recorded for access afterwards as well. But yeah, because I was surprised it was the only one with an obvious DNS link. I thought that was worth repeating as the event kicks off on next Monday in San Francisco. And I think possibly Joe was on the call this week. Yeah, yes, he is. So I'm not sure
Great.
who from
Shout out.
Domain is going to be there at RSA, but presumably some of your colleagues, Joe, will be delivering that session, which should be
I
quite
believe
interesting.
that is correct.
Good to know. Okay, and then the last one, which I also mentioned last week, again, I thought it bore repeating again, mainly because I thought the stats were really quite compelling, and I've not seen any follow-up coverage of it, right, really surprisingly, which is a report from Akamai, just highlighting some of that DNS attacks are one of the 8 most common causes of data breaches in enterprises. And as you can see, the bit I pulled out, 90% of organizations suffered from a DNS attack last year. In fact, on average, they suffered from 7.5 attacks in the year, with a cost of 1.1 million per attack. So it's nearly around $10 million in cost of attacks through the year. And 3/4 of them had some app downtime as a consequence. I mean, that looks pretty significant to me, and I've not really seen any further pickup, which I'm really baffled about, because yeah, that's pretty widespread. So I thought it just bore sort of repeating again. It'd be interesting to see if there is further pickup. I've no idea why those stats haven't been picked up more widely there in the press. I should say, if Akamai, Ralph and colleagues, if the people that do your PR want any help, I'll be happy to, for very reasonable rates, to support them to, because I think that's really compelling research. I'm just astonished. Either I've
Yeah,
missed it in the press, or it's not been given the coverage it deserves.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a different part of the company, so it was not done by me. So I don't know.
Fair. It's great research, though, Ralph. I have to say, and as I say, the stats are amazing, and should really garner a lot of attention, in my view. I might be biased, but as I say, I can offer my services to your PR team at very reasonable rates if they need some help.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, we have great data research teams, and I think we also have good marketing people. So at least the ones that I work with. So not
Good,
sure what or if some went wrong there, but I mean, at least people on this call can read it and enjoy it.
absolutely. Okay, so that was the main things from the sort of the mainly DNS and policy related stuff. There's a few other things I just wanted to highlight. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can read them at your leisure, depending on what interests you. But the 3 I will highlight. The NSA, as they generally are, will be at RSA, and I think they're delivering 5 or 6 sessions, or involved in 5 or 6 sessions. So some of the NSA leadership, which is always interesting to get their point of view on things as well. Also, coincidentally, in the US, belatedly, I think many of us might think from a policy point of view, they seem to be really now getting moving on a new federal privacy policy. So that seems to be slowly emerging. There was a flurry of different proposals in Congress in the last few weeks. So that seems to be making slow but positive progress at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see if anything sort of proper emerges outside of out the other side of that maybe something resembling GDPR. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how that evolves. And then the last one I wanted to highlight, just so you can see at the bottom of the screen, that those of us with a long memory, I was surprised, if I'm honest, that the Z80 microprocessor was still going, but not for long. So if you want to buy some standalone chips, you've got a very short amount of time left where you can still acquire them. And then after that, I think you can still buy them as on a combination, but not as a standalone a microprocessor in their own right. So they're not being completely killed off, but they are as an individual component. So I know, I think the first microcomputer that I actually saw in the flesh was a research machine Z80. So 380Z, sorry, which was based, the microprocessor was a Z80, which was fairly commonplace at the time. I think the Tandy's a micro was Z80 based, and quite a few others from a few years ago now, it has to be said. So yeah, but it's had nearly 50 years, which is not bad for a microprocessor chip. So Zilog have definitely got value for money out of the manufacturing dies for those chips. Definitely end of an era. Okay, moving on. A couple of things to highlight in terms of some calls for papers and workshop proposals and so on. For the Internet Governance Forum, the deadline for session proposals is tomorrow. So you've got sort of 24 hours or so if you haven't already put a proposal in to put those in. Just a reminder, the actual IGF event itself takes place in Riyadh in December, but they always are heavily oversubscribed with workshop proposals, which is why they want to get them in early, and then they go through the usual process of sort of sifting through them to sort of pull out the ones which will actually be selected for the program, which takes a little while before you hear back. But you got till tomorrow if you're planning to put a proposal in. You haven't got a long time. Also, just a second one down, if you're putting forward any ideas for sessions at the DNS working group at RIPE 88, just a few days. You can see the 6th of May is the deadline given for that, although I probably wouldn't leave it till then if you do have something you want to put forward. Remember, I think it's only a 2-hour slot, and it's usually got it's pretty sort of packed with good quality content. Were you wanting to come in, Alison, or was that just a stray sound? It's possibly a stray sound. Yeah, I assume it was. Yeah, okay, so bear that in mind. A few days for the RIPE DNS working group if you want to put forward something for that. And also similarly for the registrations operations workshop, row 13, again, so deadline for that 10th of May, and also 10th of May there's some IRTF, so it's the Internet Research Task Force travel grants to the meeting in Vancouver. There's a very limited number of those available, and you've got till the 10th of May to put your request in for, I presume, Colin Perkins to decide. And then, since I mentioned it earlier, OARC 43 has got a call for presentations out. You've got plenty of time yet for that, a couple of months, but that was announced last Monday. So that's now open, which gives me a reasonable confidence we should see confirmation of the venue and timing quite soon now.
Andrew,
Yes.
I sorry for that was a stray noise, but now I do have a comment. The IRTF travel grants, we actually have a pretty good number, and there's a committee that reviews them. And I think we'd really love it if people had DNS contacts who are early career or late grad students who would like to come, because we've mostly had people come in like wireless space. But the interest is to have people from their diversity grants, so people from interesting places, women, people who are underrepresented at the IETF, and I think we could really use more proposals. So if you know somebody, any of you who are out there, who you think would be interested, they should definitely propose.
So it's more than just Colin that makes the call. I take it, Alison. I wasn't
Yeah, no,
entirely
there's
sure.
a group from the IRSG who does it, and I've been doing it for a while, and I'm quite struck by the fact that I think there are many really interesting DNS players who have not come forward. They may not be aware of the call for travel grants. So I definitely think we should make sure that we get that notice out to our colleagues in other countries and our colleagues in our the people we know who we think might benefit from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And dare I say it, having been shocked, I know it's a common issue at the at the IETF generally. Shockingly low gender, the sort of diversity. I think we managed an impressive 7.6% female participation in Brisbane. Yeah, maybe things like the travel grant can help a little bit. I mean, it won't move the dial a lot, to be fair, but even a little bit would be a good thing in that regard. And yes, I think just see Vicky's comment in the chat. I presume guidelines are such that it's not going to fund my travel, for example. Delighted though I would be if somebody else paid for it. I'm sure there are criteria which limit it to people that genuinely can't otherwise attend and have a valid reason for wanting to attend, and ideally from underrepresented groups of various descriptions. But I'm sure there's plenty more details if you click on the link as per the screen.
Let me just add something about, so people who've been to ITF a lot and would like some help. There are actually, this gets reported every ITF, there are fee waivers, which can make a big difference in whether you can afford to attend or not. And I think it's probably worth looking into that if you're somebody who is contributing a lot, but is strapped and needs some help, because the fee is actually a pretty big amount of the expenses for ITF. So that's actually covered in the ITF plenary meeting, and I think there's probably some discussion of how you apply for it. Easy to find on the meetings page.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when you go through the registration process, from memory, I think it may even be visible during registration. If I recall, I said it's primarily intended for people that are attending remotely. I think the rationale being that for those people attending in person, the registration fee, versus the travel costs and accommodation costs is maybe not so significant. But I know nevertheless there have been some fee waivers for people attending in person more recently as well, which is good to see. Good. Well, I'm impressed to actually hear from someone who's involved in the travel grant process. That's good to know. Yeah, and okay, so that was all the things on there. I don't think there was anything specific on these other ones. There's some other deadlines coming up, but you've got plenty of time for those. All of these following ones are in June or later, so there's ample time for those. But just so the most immediate one, just going back, is the IGF session proposals for tomorrow, and the RIPE DNS working group, and then a few days later you got the row 13 call for speakers and the IRTF travel grants, and so on. Okay, there's a lot of forthcoming events. I think Echo's DNS training session for ISPs, DNS 101, I think that's already happened today. So if you're planning to attend that and haven't, you probably missed it. I can't remember the exact time it was on, but it was, I think it was earlier in the day. The next session, though, which I'll declare an interest. I'm a trustee of the Internet Watch Foundation, and they are hosting, this is under the Top DNS project, a DNS abuse best practice session with PIR and the Internet Watch Foundation. And PIR put forward I think a really interesting project, which is now live, to try and improve the situation with regards to child sex abuse material. So any of you that are in that space may be interested to hear from PIR to see what they've done for the TLDs that they have responsibility for, and they are trying to roll that out more widely to those bodies responsible for other TLDs, including country, so GTLDs and country TLDs as well. So some good thought leadership from PIR, which you can sort of catch later on this week if you register with. So well done to Echo for putting that together. And then, since I mentioned a couple of times, you've got the RSA conference taking place in San Francisco next week. If you're there or in the area, drop me a line. It'd be good to perhaps catch up over a coffee or a beer. But also, literally on the same dates in Paris, ICANN are holding their contracted parties summit, which does include a DNS abuse workshop on Thursday the 9th of May. And then for good measure, also on the 9th of May, so there's a lot of good stuff happening next week. The Internet Standards Observatory is holding a research roundtable. You can get details of that through the link. I think I may have seen Georgia on the call. I don't know if she's still on, and she wanted.
Hello everyone. Yes, I'm here. We are indeed holding a standards roundtable with some of our researchers, one of which I know would be really interested in the IRTF grant. So thank you for sharing that. And yes, I can send more details around later.
Excellent. Yeah, sorry for putting you on the spot, Georgia, but it seemed rude not to give you the chance as you were there.
It's okay. I just had to take a glass of water before I sort of spoke.
Fantastic. And yeah, as you can see, there's plenty of other good things running through May, June and July. There's a lot of stuff on this quarter. Probably the other couple I mentioned, I will be going to the Pier 24 conference that's located at a hotel in Heathrow in late May. If anyone else is attending that, and also sort of towards the bottom of the screen, you can see Eurodig in Vilnius in sort of middle of June, and then before we know it, it's ITF 120 in Vancouver in July. For which some of us will be should by then have published an updated version of our ECH deployment considerations paper, which I'm hoping, if the OPSEC working group has a session, will be so given the opportunity to present the paper for adoption by that working group in Vancouver, but that depends whether they have a slot on the agenda or not. And then finally from me, just going over the screen. So reminder, we don't have a call on Monday, mainly because I'll be in San Francisco and the conference starts more or less to coincide with the call. I think it starts 8:30, so I'll need to be en route to the Moscone Centre when the call's due to start. So we won't have a call next week, but following week we will have a call. That's, as I mentioned at the start of this, that's the postponed DELEG panel discussion, which will include on the panel, as you can see, Paul Mocha-Petras, Paul Vixie, Jeff Houston, and one of the DELEG co-authors. I've not heard back yet, so you have to draw straws or something, Ralph, and work out who between you is going to be the winning co-author to sort of lead off on Deleg.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, you got embarrassment of riches to choose from, which is a good problem to have. And the intent for that is to lead off with the to be confirmed co-author to perhaps give a synopsis of the proposal, so everyone's on the same page in terms of what it is, and maybe why they think it's a good thing. I think that would be reasonable. And then I'll give a few minutes each to Pauls and Jeff to give their take on it. They do have different positions on it, so they're not all going to agree with each other, otherwise it'd be really quite boring. So you give sort of different points of view from them, and then we'll open it up to a wider discussion. And you'll see, as you can see on the screen, I'm anticipating that we won't do that subject full justice within 60 minutes. I'm anticipating our panel members will each have a fair amount to share with their views, so I wanted to allow time for discussion and input from others as well. So I'm sort of planning for a 90-minute call rather than the usual 60 minutes on the 13th. So do bear that in mind. I hope that works for people's diaries with a little bit of notice. The following week, Michael Pelage is going to come on to talk about NIS2 and its impact on the domain name industry. We won't have a call at the end of May 27th because there's a public holiday in various countries, so that was looking a bit challenging for people. So we'll pick up again 3rd of June with Eurodig and sort of carry on from there. The panel discussion on encrypted DNS and resolver discovery, that's next on my list to firm up on. So it's only tentative at the moment, but I'll be sort of reaching out to a few people to just get names in the frame for that. So we mainly talk about sort of DDR and DNR and maybe a few other things as well, but I suspect those will be the two main items to sort of focus on there. Okay, so that's everything from me. So let me stop sharing my screen for a moment. I hope that was useful. I can see some interesting comments in the chat, which is good. So let me just open up to see if anyone has anything else that you'd like to sort of talk about or highlight, any announcements you picked up on or anything else, including anything I've sort of talked about that perhaps I've skipped over as something important. So feel free to jump in either in the chat if that's easier, or just unmute and talk would be even better still if you're able to. So anything from anyone else at the moment? I'm not seeing any hands raised just yet. It doesn't look like there's anyone typing at the moment, but just keep it open for another few seconds just in case. No, doesn't look like it. Okay, well, I hope that was useful for people. Hopefully we'll get a few more people putting in applications for the IRTF travel grant, if nothing else. As I mentioned earlier, if you are in San Francisco next week and want to sort of meet up for a coffee or beer, just drop me a line. That would be fantastic. Other than that, do what Ralph's doing. Enjoy the sunshine. And yeah, make the most of it whilst we can. I think it'd be good to good to get outside and get some fresh air wherever possible. So other than that, have a fantastic week and catch up in 2 weeks' time. So speak to you all then. Have a great week. Bye all.